Callum, what's your own thoughts on applying this to when you design Ashes, and when you think about retention in that game? How do you approach it?
So there's a lot that I've done in Ashes to try and make it more welcoming to new players. So like the biggest thing that I've done is I made a whole new tutorial, or even two tutorials, the basic and the advanced, because that's really the first impression that everyone has. They jump into the game, and and so you want to make sure that you demonstrate how much potential there is, and so that's the way that I see it. Right, is a tutorial. It isn't just teaching someone how to play. If it's done right, it's about giving them a little teaser, like this is all the cool stuff that you can do if you play the game. And so the way that I addressed this specifically is that I broke it up into a basic and advanced tutorial. But I didn't do that in a way that, okay, in the basic tutorial, it's like half of the game. Okay, units, structures, like commands, and teching. And then the advanced tutorial is upgrades and abilities and stuff like that. Because then if someone plays the basic tutorial and that's all they play, and say that's about 10 minutes, I don't know what the actual length is, maybe 10, 15 minutes, then they're only getting a sample of half the game. So the way that I did it is the basic tutorial, it actually goes through everything in the game. It goes through, units, buildings, capturing points, goes through resources, goes through abilities, goes through upgrades, but it does it in a limited way. It demonstrates the entire game. So you go like, wow, this game, you build massive armies, you capture regions, you call down orbital strikes, you upgrade your units, you got to like manage your resources. Like, wow, there's a lot in this game. This game has a lot of depth to offer. There's different types of units and so forth, but then it doesn't overbear players with too much information in terms of like advanced macro techniques, in terms of like the way that cutoffs work, in terms of the way that like there's a certain counter system. Like that's all reserved for the advanced tutorial. Because the thing is, the thing is with Steam now is like if someone buys your game, it isn't enough, because people will often buy like 10 games at once on sale. They'll buy it because it's on a summer sale, so they'll buy it for like 75% off, and they have 10 other games that they bought. So you really only have like an hour to get them hooked, because if you don't hook them within that hour, they're just gonna go play something else instead because they bought 10 games, and they bought it so cheap on sale that there isn't really much revenue there anyway. You wanted people to stick with it so they get their friends into it and buy the DLC.
It's interesting that you mentioned this, that you try to demonstrate the whole game, and I see that as kind of trying to create suspense for the players, as we talked about, as a way of introducing or getting more people to the easier accessibility to the game, kind of creating this suspense. Oh, you can do a lot of things, but let's start small, right? So players have this idea that a lot can happen, but it's still easy to get into.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more that I can expand about the tutorial. So like one thing I did as well is that in order to try and give people this gratification, I gave them, there's a few hidden objectives. So you obviously have objectives that it tells you to do, and if you do them, you tick. It's like, yeah, well done. But there's other things that it doesn't actually tell you to do directly. But if you do it, it says like, hey, well done, you did the thing. So say like one of the first things you got to do is you got to build metal extractors. So you build 2, and it says like, hey, well done, you built 2. And then when you capture the next region, it says, I mean, I say, because I'm the voiceover for it, I say like, okay, cool. Now you've captured this region. Now you can build metal extractors to get more income. But I don't actually say like, all right, build more metal extractors. But if the player takes the initiative and they build the metal extractors, a hidden objective pops up as ticked, and then I say like, oh, well done. The more extractors you build, the more income you get. So then the people that discover that are like, oh wow, I did something good. So there's the ways you can give gratification.
That's a really clever way to do it, to like hide them away, because it doesn't. It also doesn't make it feel like a chore, right?
Yeah,
I think that's like a danger with RTS specifically. Like it's really easy for things to feel like a chore for the player coming in.
Yeah.
That's really clever, Callum.
Oh,
So
thank you.
crafty, man.
Thank you.
And for me, it also means that there's a lot less clutter maybe for the player. There's like, oh,
Mhm.
I said it to you one time. I don't need to say it to you again, right? You can do it if
Yeah.
you want to.
It
And
can
that's
be
that's better for the player. It's
I-
a better
I-
first impression.
Yeah, and as well, like with seeing that, like, boom, you know, you completed this like hidden task or whatever. That further incentivize, at least to me, like it would further incentivize that I explore the game on my own, and that's what you kind of want to do, right? Like if you get a player to start their journey where they want to explore more of your game on their own, you know, at their own tempo, like the pace doesn't really matter. As long as they're doing that, you've got like a really good baseline, you know, for them to keep coming back to your game, right? Because then they'll be intrigued by what they see and by what they discover.
Yeah.
Instead of being intimidated.
Yeah.
There's other
I
hidden
want to-
objectives too, like you know, if they push out further than they're supposed to and they destroy this thing, it's like, yeah, you destroyed your opponent's forward base. You know, if you deprive your opponent of resources, they won't have as much units. So there's like several ways that I've done that in the mission, and I also like the way the tutorial ends was quite deliberate. So the way that it ends is there's like orbital abilities that you can cast, to like throw down, but there's like ways that you can jam it. There's like buildings that create an aura that you can't use abilities in that area. And so I say that, and then you get a spawn of like 3 heavy bombers. And then I say, okay, blow up your opponent's orbital nullifier, and you'll be able to use orbital abilities. And then it does that, and then I say, all right, well done. Now you can blow up your opponent's base with an orbital strike. And then the tutorial ends by the player clicking the orbital strike and then clicking their opponent's base, and then their opponent's base completely blows up, and then it ends. And specifically, the orbital strike doesn't actually have enough damage to blow up your opponent's nexus, which is like the command center. So I made another nexus in like the mod files that has less health, so that it does get blown up by the orbital strike. And it's a really pretty effect. It's like this, you know, orbital detonation coming down. So when that is combined with the victory, the player doesn't know what to expect. They've never seen this ability before. It ends it on a really exciting note. It's like, bam, that looked really nice.
Yeah.
That's important as well, I feel, man, because visual feedback is something that is, like visual feedback and visual clarity. Like you have pretty good visual feedback and visual clarity in a game like League of Legends, for instance. Personally, I find Dota 2 to be a little bit more messy, but it's pretty much the same thing. And when you have like big abilities like that, you know, an orbital strike in Ashes of Singularity, you have, you know, the big call in Company of Heroes, like that's massive, right? That's a huge sort of, you get like massive input from the game as a player. You're like, holy shit, you know? And again, like it further creates this incentive to keep exploring the abilities, and then you can start like finding combos of, you know, if I drop like this artillery together with like this machine gun suppression, I can make like a really effective infantry killer thing in Code 2.